That's exactly what happened. Somebody would run, one of the kids would run, and he would take off. He would break chains, which is why his name was Samson.
Yeah.
And eventually, because my mom was a property manager for an apartment complex, he broke so many times that to save her job, basically, we had to surrender him.
Yeah.
Broke my heart.
Breaks my heart.
Samson was a good puppy. He was only like 6 months old when we had to surrender him.
Jeez, that's like a young.
Beautiful.
Oh, hello, sorry I'm late.
You're fired.
Sorry.
Fired.
I know, I should just sign off right now.
No.
Bye, guys. I'm leaving. I shouldn't be here. I don't belong.
Oh my goodness. Don't even.
Okay, but I made it. And I got my
You
fish
made
in
it.
his new tank.
They're like mad accidents or something.
Well, I don't know why they had the road closed, but they had an officer close the road, and then there's just a ton of people on it because it's block or whatever. And I was coming from over in like well, I don't know why they had the closed, but they had
Rancho. Rancho. All right. So
I was
know
up there for Starbucks, okay, not for the drink. There's a bunch of Starbucks that were like really short on it. And I was coming from over in people, I guess.
I don't remember.
They literally were closed at like 3 o'clock too, because they're so short staffed. But that sucks.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like I might as well apply.
So today's topic is shrines and altars, right?
Yes.
And I was thinking about what you were talking to me about today. Why don't you share with Cliff what happened today?
Many things. Which one remind me though exactly? Which one? I sent you the groups. Okay, hold on. I gotta bust my phone out because I have like the worst like ADHD pothead memory. So you're gonna have to give me a second.
I will start you then, okay?
Yeah, just start
it'll
me.
probably jog you.
It
So
will.
Kayla is part of some Facebook groups. They're pagan Facebook groups.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Sorry, that totally jogged
Okay,
my
she
memory.
remembered.
Thank you. Like groups, yeah, the Facebook group. So it's a pagan and witchcraft humor group. That's the title. And I see a lot of people who are like Christian comment in it, and a couple times I see people say that they're Christian pagan in there. And that was my thing about this morning. And I was like, but if you're pagan, isn't Christianity part of the big five? So wouldn't that mean that you're not pagan if you're saying you're Christian? So I just have my take on it, but I'd like to hear your guys' take.
So, I used to have a hang up on this, or a hang up about this, for a very, very long time. It was always my opinion that you could not be Christian and pagan at the same time. Because you shouldn't be serving two masters, especially two masters that are so diametrically opposite.
Diametrically opposed?
Yes. I'm somewhat over that, because if you look at it in the overall grand scheme of things, so I know a lot of Catholics that are also Wiccan, a lot of Wiccans that are also Catholic. They reconcile it because they have what's the word I'm looking for? Abjection? No, abdication?
Objectivity?
No, abdication. It's basically they have forgiveness regardless. It's because they go to communion, or not communion. I'm sorry. Word vomit. Confessional.
Confession.
Yes. They have the ability to basically assuage their guilt because of what they're doing. Whether or not they see it that way on a personal level, I don't know. I know that's how it was explained to me a couple times. A lot of them just don't really even see it that way. They look at it kind of as one is the same, kind of the way that a lot of voodoo practitioners, Santeria practitioners are also Catholic, because a lot of their ritual and mysticism is cross-platform. I mean, basically,
Yeah, that makes sense.
a lot of the things that they're using as for their symbology or their idols and stuff in voodoo and hoodoo are Catholic statues, or that's the only way that I can describe it. Not being a practitioner of those particular faiths, looking in from the outside, that's how I'm seeing it, and I see it in the same way as how the Spanish celebrate Dia de Muertes, Day of the Dead. It's not a normal Catholic um, ritual or festival. It's a Catholic Spanish festival. Um, the normal, the Western Catholic Church, or at least the American Catholic Church, doesn't celebrate that unless they are Spanish. Um, I'm sure if somebody who knows more about it and is watching will explain it better to me. But that's from an outsider looking at it, going, "Well, okay, that must be how logically to me that must be how they reconcile the two things." Um, for me personally, for me personally, yes, I have mixed and matched my pantheons. There are some, Norse deities that I will send prayers to. There are some Celtic deities that I will send prayers to. I will send prayers to Baphomet. I will, it's those deities. It's the deities that call to me, that I connect with the most in um, I don't want to call it shamanism because I think there's, for me being white and not Native American or of an indigenous population, shamanism still is steeped in that real indigenous tribal faith. But for lack of a better word, that's the term that I'll use because it is nature worship that I do for the most part. Um, I just don't like to call it shamanism because of its um, association with other faiths. Because it's not in the Norse tradition. It's not called shamanism. In the Celtic tradition, it's not called shamanism. It's called something else. I can't think of the name for it right off the top of
And I will.
I don't know it either.
I will say that this kind of mishmashing of paths more common than you think. Um, People will meld what they know with what they want to experience to make their own interaction. So I mean that's where the idea of mysticism comes about, especially like in the pagan world. Like I was telling you before, a mystic will make their own faith path. They'll pull pieces from everywhere to make their faith workable for them. So it may be that they are Wiccan, okay, which is a very specific path, um, Celtic and nature worship. But instead of thinking of just a blase god, because in the Wiccan path, as far as I'm aware, and I'm not part of the close practice of traditional British Wicca, um, but it's the goddess and the god. It's not the horned god. It's not the green man. It's the goddess and the god. They may decide that they're embodiment of the goddess because they are of a Christian path, be it Catholicism, Baptist, whatever. Their goddess is represented by the Virgin Mary, and their god is represented by Christ. And that's how they reconcile their practice. Still practicing a faith based on nature and such, but it's
iconography.
Word wrong. Thank you. That is familiar to them. They grew up with. Does that make sense?
One of the other things that I kind of look at, especially when it comes to mixed pantheons, especially in the Northern European white centric pantheon, a lot of the deities are just aspects of each other. So
Yes.
you have Odin in Scandinavia, you have Woden in the Germanic tribes, you have Thor, you have Perun, who is the Slavic variant of Thor. And then if you go back to pre-Christian Russia, they also have those same aspects of the Norse gods that we know, the modern Norse gods that we know, stretch all the way back to ancient prehistory Russia.
Yeah.
And all throughout Northern Europe, including some of the deities that are worshipped in the Pictish deities of Northern Scotland, the Orkneys, and even into Northern Ireland that weren't influenced by the settlers that came from the Iberian Peninsula into Southern Ireland. So I could go on to this. I can go on this subject forever. I mean, it's actually
maybe
one of my favorite subjects.
Maybe one of these days, one of our episodes should be just the pantheons and how
Yeah.
they evolved. Because I think, as a history nerd, and I'm sure Cliff can say the same thing, as a history nerd, it's really interesting how these legends or these myths and legends turn into gods, then morph into saints.
It's very
and then
anthropological.
morph into, it's very, very interesting. You can really follow the flow of influence through those kind of things.
Well, you can also just follow the flow of humanity from one area to another by following how the religion has evolved from when we crawled out of Africa and came up north. I mean,
That's true. Very true. So I'm glad you brought that up today because when you were talking about how can you be a Christian and pagan, I was like, you know what, this is perfect. This is the perfect opening question for our discussion on altars and shrines. And the reason that I say that is because almost every single path has both altars and shrines. And almost every single path designates them the same way. Okay, so Cliff, you had a somewhat Christian upbringing. Kayla, you said you had somewhat of a Christian upbringing as well, didn't you?
Yeah, Presbyterian, but same thing. Like a Christian branch off or something like that. I don't really know much about it. It was Christian.
You grew up Protestant.
There you go.
You grew up Protestant. So anything that follows the Bible of the monotheistic God and preaches the words of Yeshua are Christian. Okay, that's very, very important. Okay, because and I say it that way because there are some some paths that will say, well, we're not Christian. We are this. We're separate. Fortunately, if you are following the word of Christ, then you are a Christian. That is what Christian means. You are following Christ. You are a follower of Christ. Doesn't mean you have to be saved. Doesn't mean you have to be baptized. If you are following the words of their prophet, you are of that faith. And the reason that that's important to distinguish is because Muslims have almost, not quite, but almost the same path. Their book is different, and their prophet is different. Even in the Quran are stories of Yeshua. They do not say that Yeshua did not exist. In fact, they know he exists. They just see him as a different prophet. They don't follow his teaching. Same with those who follow and practice Judaism. They have a different prophet. Their book is very similar. In fact, the first half of the conventional Bible is taken very badly from the Torah. I had to have this discussion with my grandmother. She's like, "Well, what's that other book the Jews have?" I'm like, "Talmud." She's like, "Yeah, yeah. What's that?" I'm like, "Technically, that's discussions with rabbis."
It's the book of the law.
Well, yeah, it's like it's the discussions and notes that rabbis over hundreds of years have had about the teachings of the Torah, and it is discussions. Like somebody will read it and say, "This is what I pull from this," and then someone maybe 100 years later will say, "But see what you're saying, but what about this?" And it's quite literally a discussion of the Torah. That blew my Baptist grandmother's mind. She's like, "Well, why aren't we doing that?" I don't know. Why aren't you? The reason I'm saying all this is because almost every single church of Christ, there are some exceptions. I'm saying that because I'm thinking back into my own experiences. There's an altar in every single church. And if you are a follower of the Catholic path, that altar is the rock on which Peter built the church. And usually, really good churches will actually have a rock that their altar is built on. It's important. It's important that people know the difference between an altar and a shrine, because altar is the sacred working space. That's where all the blessings are done. Ever watched a wedding? It's usually that big table that the priest will turn around and pick something off of. It's a sacred. The church is a sacred space, but really, that altar is the most sacred of places. Funny story. I visited my grandmother, my step grandmother once. She invited us to church for an evening service. I said yes. We went into the family room because my boyfriend's daughter was rambunctious, run around everywhere if we did not have some kind of hold on her. It was a way. They piped in the sermon. And then my grandfather came in to get us so that we could partake in the sacrament, which I was really weirded out about. I was like, "Grandpa, I'm not Catholic. I haven't been to catechism. I have no idea what I'm doing." He's like, "Oh, just go, 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 go." Well, we went out there and the sacrament was over. I didn't know what I was doing. He was pushing me along. And we went up and messed around with the altar. My grandmother told me afterwards that I started bawling because it's a sacred space. Like, being a pagan, knowing that that was the altar, like, it wrecked the hell out of me. Now, if it were a shrine, totally different. A shrine, you keep up. It's God's space. Yes, it's still sacred, but you can mess around with it. You move stuff off, and you put stuff on, and you change stuff out. An altar is a workspace. There's hardly any icons on it. There's tools. It gets put up and it gets taken down. No matter what your path, that's what an altar is.
It's your workbench.
Icons. What do you mean by icons, though? Like, you mean like deities and stuff, or like just like symbolisms, or what do you mean by icons necessarily?
If you have a statuary, have it on for instance, I'm pointing. You can't see it, but I'm pointing to the shrine to the Morgan in my China hut. It was in my TikTok. It has ravens all over it and crows, and there's cornucopia. There's pumpkins. There's river water. These are all things that are associated with the Morgan. That is basically her spot. That is my invitation to allow her into our home. I say our home. Brett lives here. Cat lives here. I guess I have to share it. But that's her spot. I put things there for her. My altar, on the other hand, that's my spot to do my work. I'm not gonna leave it out. I don't want it to get dirty. I don't want my tools to get messed up. That's the difference.
And for your particular like craft and path, though, for your altar though, you specifically don't put any of those like your deity work on there because I know other paths do. Like so,
Yeah. Well, I
in
mean,
in this book, it lays it out right in the place of where your altar goes. You put your deities on there, and you do put symbolism too. Like it really.
You're talking about the candles, though.
No, you can. It says that you can actually put like
Statuary.
the deity. Yeah.
Yeah.
Symbol.
Well,
Yeah.
like when I was younger, I wrote about this. It's embarrassing to talk about it now. When I was younger, I mean, I was 13. I wasn't allowed to go out and buy candles. I didn't have an allowance. What the hell are you talking about? I had, I shit you not, 3 treasure trolls, gemstones and everything. One was red, one was green, one was purple with a pink streak. Now, these had come to me well before I was a practicing pagan, but they sat on my altar when I did my work because I didn't have the candles to light. This was well before my craft changed and evolved to what it is now. Now I'm talking candles to the god and goddess. This is not a ritual. I'm not doing ritual. I'm asking, for money to come into my house because I'm fucking broke. I don't need the god and the goddess to be there for that. I'm just gonna light my green candle, write my wish, burn it, done. But when I was younger, yeah, I pull the treasure trolls out. I'd brush their hair. I'd awaken them, put them on the altar, do my craft, put them away. Um, the problem is where people are setting up these altars and leaving them. You don't want.
Yeah, that's something that I learned recently.
Yeah, you don't leave it out. Uh, it's a workspace. That's exactly what it is. An altar is a workspace. You use it for your tools. You pack it up. You put it away. Usually, part of the spell is to set it up. There's a way that you cast your circle. There's a specific rhythm and rhyme to why you put the things on the altar that you do, depending on your tradition, on your path. Both on your path and your craft. um, it's not. Oh, I'm gonna set up an altar to the moon. Why? You don't set up an altar to the moon. The moon's there. The moon's doing its job. She makes the tide go in and the tide go out. She's doing her thing. You want something to honor her? Set up a shrine. Put your iconography there. You're gonna put your moon pies. Yes, I actually saw somebody do that. Set up an altar to the moon and put moon pies on it. I thought it was absolutely hilarious. Perfect. I did wonder who got the moon pie afterwards or how they were gonna dispose of it, since I'm pretty sure all of it is non.
Wait, like you mean like those
like a
processed
legit
food in a
moon
package?
pie.
Moon pie. I thought like they made some like
No,
dessert.
I'm
and I'm like,
talking about
they
a
made-
moon
I wanna
pie.
try it. I'm like imagining some delicious like pie with like some I don't know maybe like I love custard so maybe like a custard because the moon's yellow and all custard filling and some I don't know but I was imagining some delicious like pie just
Sorry.
now moon pie. Man.
Looks like your soul just got sucked out.
Yeah. Like if they would have like I would have let it slide a bit. Their altar to the moon if they had made the moon pies. I'm like, okay, you just labeled it wrong. You called it an altar when you meant shrine. But now that they just went and bought a moon pie, now I'm gonna be mean. Totally kidding. You can only buy a moon pie. That's totally fine. But
It's totally fine.
totally fine.
But again, it's not an altar. There's no
Right.
work being done. There's no that's the key. It's work being done at this space. If it's not an altar. And I don't want people to think that we're ragging on beginners or novices. We're really not. Help. We're trying to help get your craft to where you think you are. Like it's just a term thing. But I mean, even so, if I look at someone, for example, if I were to look at someone within the construction industry. Okay, I'm pulling from myself again. I'm sorry. If I were to look at someone, Kayla, pretend that you're a welder.
All right, I'm welding.
Okay,
Welding.
and I hand you something that looks like plans. Okay, and I
Alright.
tell you, here's the plans for the job you're doing. In your head, you look at it, it doesn't look like plans to you. Instead, it looks like a weld schedule. But because I said plans, you automatically know I don't know what I'm talking about.
Plan like the scheduling plan. I'd be thinking all sorts of things. I wouldn't immediately think that. I guess that's just me though.
But it's not a conscious thing. Your brain goes, you're not quite on sure footing here. You don't know that this is not actually plans. This is a weld schedule. This this piece of paper tells me exactly what needs to happen with this piece of metal, what kind of parameters I need to weld in to make sure that this metal is used to a consistently pass inspection. This can be load bearing. If I say, "Oh, here are your plans," as a welder, when I hear somebody say, "Here are the plans. This is what needs to be done," I'm thinking the schematics for the entire building. What do I want with those? I don't need those. That's not what I'm doing. I'm doing this section right here. I need to take these two pieces of metal and make them one. What am I going to do with plans? Plans don't tell me what temperature it needs to run at, whether or not this needs to be done up over my head or in a downward motion. All of those actually matter in whether or not it's going to fuse. This doesn't a set of plans doesn't tell me exactly what kind of inspection it's going to be done on this piece of metal. So when somebody tells me, "Oh, I have your plan," it's not that I want to, but immediately I don't trust what they're saying because they obviously don't have the knowledge to tell me what it is. It's not conscious.
I get that. What if they just handed you the wrong paper?
It could be that too. They could have handed me
You
actual
quick to
plans.
think they're stupid.
No, I'm not. It's not. I'm not. I don't think they're stupid. Stupid and lack of knowledge are two different things.
You're quick to think they're lacking knowledge. There you go.
It's not okay. As a practitioner, I want to be able to because I've taken you under my wing. If I tell you I need you to set up an altar, I need to know that you know exactly what that means.
If you tell me altar and I set up an altar, but you meant shrine, that's on you.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So if you handed me plans and you wanted to hand me schematics, that'd be on you still.
Yes.
So
Plans and a weld schedule.
I'd still, it still would be the person who was receiving the information still would be the one who would not. It still wouldn't be on them. I'm confused. I'm just confused.
This is where I'm going with this. We are in a interconnected world these days. Okay. So when somebody is posting, "Oh, look at the new altar I set up. I'm setting up this altar for the full moon," and then they leave it up. The next person who comes along who doesn't have that knowledge base is going to perpetuate that. "Oh, I'm doing an altar to good vibes." The next person comes along, "Oh, I'm going to do an altar to Persephone and Hades." Okay, but what work are you doing? And then, of course, when somebody comes along and says, "Hey, listen," then we get the stop gatekeeping, stop doing this. When all somebody's trying to do is help further their practice. If we are unable as a community to change just small things like altar and shrine and accept that maybe we don't know what the hell we're talking about, then that again, we're all getting painted with the same brushstrokes. We're gonna set everything back. The reason I'm bringing this up is because of freaking TikTok. One you sent me today really just made me go,
So yeah,
going after that lady in the comments, man. You're
I
trying.
mean, okay, no, but real quick, that girl's little charm bottle she made with the bead was so smart, and someone said in the comments, "I'm making a necklace," and I was like,
yeah, that
oh,
I did like that. I did like that, considering how often I've tried to make our potion charms with those little itty bitty freaking eyelet rings, man.
We're putting a bead on.
Kicking my ass every single time.
Yeah, people were vicious in that comments. Like, there were some nice people, but most people were just like ripping her a new one, saying like, "No, you have." Yeah. There were some that were like really getting on about using the hot glue, and it's like, chill. Like, she's what she had. Like,
yeah.
She had like. That's gatekeeping right there. Can't use hot glue, guys.
Well, somebody
no allowed.
Like,
hear that, Cliff? No hot glue.
Sealing wax has hot glue in it. No. Real sealing wax does not have hot glue in it. If you're getting the hot glue stick sealing wax, yes.
Then that's gonna have it, yeah.
If you're using real sealing wax, it's not hot glue. Sorry.
People can't afford that stuff.
And that's fine.
I'm the trash witch.
But so there is something to be said though for using the proper tools and the proper terminology for things, because mishaps can happen if you're doing things improperly. The reason why a certain ritual or spell is done in a certain way. Any deviation from that, either A, it doesn't work, or B, something bad can happen. You never read out loud from the Necronomicon is the phrase that I like to say or use. Because
I don't know. I have no knowledge on that, so don't look at me.
well, it's a trope. It's a trope from the Call of Cthulhu role playing games. You never read out loud from any of the books you take from the library, because what's going to happen? Well, you're probably going to summon something terrible and not know it.
Awesome.
Something that's probably going to eat you, and not just eat you, but eat your soul.
Yes.
You know, and I've never been accused of gatekeeping, not to my face, anyways. But I can be a real stickler for doing things a certain way, especially in a faith that I've been practicing for a long time.
Same here.
Yeah.
Same here.
And there are things, that I still, even though I'm not a practicing Christian, I still sometimes get bent out of shape about the assumptions that people make about Christians. I'm trying to think of an example. Protestants.
All Mormons are polygamists.
Well, okay, that's a good assumption. All Christians are conservative, crazy people. While it is the majority, it's not necessarily not all of them. Or what was one that I heard the other day? Oh, somebody was. It was a conversation that happened on another show that I did. Somebody had asked another person that they knew if they were a Christian. He's like, "Well, I'm a Methodist." And the immediate answer to that was like, "Oh, I thought you were a Christian." And my immediate answer was like, "Well, a Methodist is a Christian." And they're like, "Well, I'm Catholic." I'm like, "Okay, you're a Christian too."
You just have more rules.
It doesn't matter if you're a Catholic or a Protestant or a Mormon or a Jehovah's Witness or a Seventh-day Adventist or a Branch Davidian or whatever, denomination you belong to, Lutheran, Baptist, Presbyterian, Methodist. They're all Christian. They all read
like a tree.
the same Bible. with the exception of the Mormons and the JWs who have extra books. Well, the Catholics have extra books too, but
we went outside of the player's handbook,
right?
And we decided to get.
You've got expansions.
Guide.
You've got expansions.
Yes.
Not only in the religion, but also in the marriage.
it's
My bow came
Well,
but
so charming.
going back to the original topic on shrines and altars and the differences between 100% what Christina Lynn said. Altars are your workbench. That's where you set your tools up, and when you're done, you put your tools away. Your shrine is for worship and for looking at or whatever. I mean, I have a shrine to one of my passed away dogs on my bookcase. You know, I've got her paw print, and I've got a picture of her, and a little statue of her. That's my shrine to my dog. I've got a shrine to my grand.
Shrines,
Shrines could literally be to anything you want. I mean,
taking them down though, because I see a lot of mixed comments of that. People will be like, "Oh, you have to if you're taking it down, you have to cleanse everything before you take it down, or once you take it down, you have to cleanse everything, or you can't take them down. You just should never take them down." But I think that's kind of dumb.
You can take your shrines down. I mean, the Romans used to have mobile shrines. You know, anytime they would go from camp to camp, they would set up their shrine. You know,
that makes sense.
Your legionary or general would have a shrine in his tent to his ancestors and to whatever gods he was taking with him when he was going to war. Shrines can be mobile.
Mobile shrine.
Yeah, exactly.
So it depends on your path and your craft. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of knowledge on paths that are outside of the paths that I've walked. Okay? But if your craft says there is a specific time for your shrine, go with that. Those who practice Santeria usually have a shrine to Santa Muerta, Lady Death, as well as the Virgin Mary. They're probably mirror images of each other. There's specifics for everything, but it really just depends on what path and craft you're walking. Now, if you've made a vow that you will never disturb the shrine, that's on you. That's the promise that you made to that deity. That is their space. I like I said before, it's like their house. The shrine is whatever that shrine for. That's their space. So your offerings and gifts.
Keep it clean though.
You don't want to leave rotting food in the shrine. Okay?
Hey, it didn't rot. It fermented. It didn't even smell. Whatever. It looked like a beautiful glazed cherry. That's what it looked like.
Most importantly, don't mess with shrines that you haven't set. If it's a shrine that you come across, for example, if you're just hiking out in nature and you notice a stack of rocks, a cairn. Yes, if you notice a cairn or something out there, that's a shrine. Don't mess with it.
Don't mess with it.
Yeah, it's not yours. You didn't set it up. You don't know what it's devoted to.
That just makes me think of the rock stacking. This is a total side tangent, but in a lot of my eco groups, do not ever stack a rock because of all the little ecosystems you're going to kill when the rock topples over. But I mean, my personal opinion.
I've heard that.
I'm going to stack my rocks that I want as long as all the big corporations are doing whatever they want.
We came across a really big cairn a few weeks ago down by the American River when me and the kids and my wife were hiking. We were hiking kind of. We were north of the river, It was at the park that's at Sunrise, and it was kind of off in the back. We were on a back trail, and I mean it was a clear trail, but it wasn't one that was very heavily used. There wasn't. I mean, we were the only people on it, but there was a really detailed cairn back there that somebody or a group of people had set up, and
I was go check that out.
um I sat for a few minutes just studying it, just to see what it was. It was cool. I liked it, but I didn't mess with it.
I'm going up there just to see it now. When I was up in Natomas, I made a tiny little mini Stonehenge type thing, and then I put some stairs. I even carved out the dirt all the way to the shore. I made a big pool, and I put stairs, and I was like, this is the mini Stonehenge, and then this whole set of stairs just leading to the hot tub area. And it was just like, yeah, look at my little tiny setup. And I spent a good hour on that, and I shouldn't have put it so close to the shore.
I'll send you a map to where it was.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna go look at it. Christina, you want to go with me?
It depends on when we're doing it, because
again. Don't worry. When I get back from dog sitting again, we'll go.
Yeah, some friends of mine also have, they have a henge in their front yard. They built a henge in their front yard. It's a little mini henge. It's nothing super huge, but it's their little shrine. They're very into that druidic path where they wanted to have their own henge.
Well,
I don't think my mom would let me put one out there. Nice circle out. I got a nice circle on, But you do. A little henge up there
for the horses to run around. Even the actual Stonehenge has what they think was an altar table in the center of it. So I mean, they don't. They think they know what Stonehenge was built for. Not built for midsummer, but actually midwinter, and they think it was more for funeral celebrations than anything else. But it has a temple, and they don't have any. They don't have any evidence.
There's a lot of speculation.
That it was a shrine that was built for one purpose, or one idea, a god, or something like that. They think it was actually a temple type space with an altar and such like that. So, I mean, when you were talking about taking stuff down, and Cliff is right. If you didn't put it up, don't touch it. Unless you have permission. Like I've known family shrines where like the whole family has the permission to clean it or switch things out, put things on it. If you have to move your shrine, okay, so think of it like the god's house. Ask if it's okay. Tell them what you're doing. Oh, I'm dusting. They're not gonna matter. They probably want it cleaned anyway.
I feel like it should be done anyway. I'm like, as I.
But an altar you should never have to clean because it doesn't ever stay. I mean, even there's a gentleman that I follow on Facebook. He's a priest, a Haitian priest. Meaning he's not Haitian. He follows the path of Haitian voodoo. He owns a voodoo shop in New Orleans, and he spends hundreds of dollars every day setting up the shrines to the Lao. They are magnificent.
Really neat. I have a book on voodoo and Santeria and stuff that I gotta finish reading. I haven't actually ever finished reading yet.
We actually in Sacramento have quite a few voodoo practitioners. Mm-hmm. Now, for those who are watching, voodoo is a craft. Yes, voodoo is a craft, not a path. Voodoo is a path and a craft. Very, very particular distinction already been published through Llewellyn. She's published a couple of books on Santeria, uh, La Muerta, and I think she's coming out with her food stuff now. She just posted on Facebook, oh, I'm this close to publishing the next book. Um, very, very good. If you guys get a chance to, I will privately send you the author's name so you can look it up. I don't have permission to talk about her on the podcast. Unfortunately, I haven't reached out to her and asked her if I could use her name or anything like that. So I'm not gonna say it, but privately, I'll let you guys know. Uh, I mean,
Is it what I think it is?
Else, I don't know. You and I have never talked about.
Oh, you mentioned just some of the people you know, so I just thought.
There is another practitioner that I know who I've asked quite a bunch of information from. Also, very, very knowledgeable. It's crazy, like what people who do not practice path or craft go to these people, these practitioners, these root workers, and ask things of them, and then part of me is like, how do you rectify that? You're gonna curse the people who are practicing, who are safe in their practicing, and yet turn around and still this is the root workers. I don't understand it.
Yeah, it's been happening for years. I'll never understand. I will never understand.
Sorry, the cat.
Oh, it's okay. My dinner's ready. I'm gonna eat soon.
Well, so what other questions do you have about altars and shrines? Because this has come up, I know, between you and I a couple of times. I know it comes up on our Amino often. It makes me wish that Amino would actually let us link our podcast to them because I think it would help.
Yeah, I don't. I think you can't link Facebook because you have to be signed in or
No,
something.
no, no. You can't advertise off platform from Amino. I don't like it.
Oh, that's weird. I link my Etsy on there all the time. They're picking and choosing. That's what they're doing. But I don't know. Trying to think of things. Um, Real questions, I guess. It's pretty. I mean, we've gone over everything. It's pretty. What's the word? I can't think of the word.
I think we've pretty well covered it. I mean, it's not a horribly complicated subject. It's it's just a matter of making sure you have the terminology of the two different things correct and what they're used for.
Well, I mean, I've seen some people who set up these shrines, what are actually shrines, call them altars, and then do work on them.
I mean, I guess you can. There's nothing saying that you can't. It's just
kind of odd.
Yeah, I would find it awkward. I would find it awkward unless I was doing work that was specific to what the shrine was dedicated to.
Yeah, more often than not, they're just calling upon entities while they're doing their work.
Yeah, but that would kind of be
no problem doing that.
to in my mind it would kind of be so. For example, say I set up a shrine to Manawiden, god of the ocean. And then I decide I'm going to come by and I'm going to use the shrine as an altar to Caradwin. Sure, why not? The shrine is already dedicated to a different deity. It would kind of be an affront to that deity, I would think. If you all of a sudden started evoking another deity on their shrine.
That'd be like a insult.
I would be kind of irritated.
Well, I mean, I think it's like what I see a lot are this is my shrine to Apollo, and this is the work that I'm doing, and the work is like, help me dab off some bullies or something like that. I'm like, yeah, ask the god that you're working with or that you worship to give them your blessing, but you don't need them to be into that kind of work. It's hard to explain to them when you see stuff like that. Like,
It really depends on your path, because some paths, like in the rituals, like from what I've read in a lot of places, it'll be like you do call upon the god to help you with that work, though. And when you do start
it, follower of the Greek pantheon, which Apollo was part of, aren't just a worshiper of Apollo. Worship the whole pantheon. So you wouldn't ask
Apollo might be your patron.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you worship the whole pantheon, though, I'd say, because that goes with more of like mixing in, like what we said earlier, with mixing in your deities and worshiping other people. I wouldn't say that you worship the entire pantheon if you just worship Apollo.
Well, it's a little different.
Okay, so if you are walking the Greek pantheon path, you are practicing Hellenistic paths, okay, then you're worshiping all of the gods of the Greek pantheon. Not just, you may have a patron, like Morgan is my patron, okay? But I have the whole pantheon to guide me, because every god is a different aspect. Apollo has a different aspect than Persephone. Persephone is a different aspect than Aphrodite. You have the whole pantheon to round out your path. So if you are going after a specific thing, your patron happens to be Apollo. Okay, let him know that you're doing this. You wouldn't call on him to take care or to smite an act of rage against somebody who's doing wrong. Call on Ares, God of war. See what I'm saying? If you need to ace a test and you worship Hades, because not only is he the god of the underworld, protector of the souls, but he also happens to be, the man behind the money, the god of wealth. But you need to ace your history test. You're going to call upon the goddess of wisdom, not necessarily Hades. See what I'm saying?
Or Hermes.
So why would you have that spell on your Apollo shrine if you're trying to do?
Can you still have Apollo as your patron without, though, following the pantheon necessarily? Because I know, like a lot of people do, and would consider that as like a gatekeeping method by saying like you have to follow, but you have to worship the entire Hellenistic. I can't fucking say it. You have to basically worship the entire Greek pantheon if you want to have like Persephone as your patron.
No,
I'm not saying that's how I see it as. I'm just saying that's what I see a lot of people saying as like, if you follow Persephone, you don't have to follow the others. Like you don't have to worship them.
So, as a follower of Thelema, for me, if that is your true will, then yes. But on the flip side of that, I see serious drawbacks to not recognizing the rest of the pantheon. That's me. If it works for you, if it's your true will to only recognize Apollo, not recognize his father or his brother or his mother,
or any of his sisters,
or whatever. I mean, the whole freaking family. And that's on you. You know, you are going to get what you're going to get out of what you're following. It's the whole do what thou wilt. So if you be you.
It comes down to
That's not what I do. I'm not saying. I know a lot of people, so I'm asking kind of like I know people are like that. So I'm just asking kind of.
It really is a personal preference. And that's what it boils down to.
I think that's why I haven't really picked anyone. I've never never really worshipped anyone because I have a lot of hangups over it, and I have a lot of questions over this kind of stuff. So I'm always like, what the fuck?
Worshiping and working for are two different things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For example,
Well, I've done really like neither. So
you can be a worshiper. We're gonna go back to baseline, okay? Unfortunately, that just means we're gonna go back to baseline. You can be a worshiper of Christ and not works.
that makes sense.
Okay, one is being a worshiper. One is having him as your patron, however you want to say it. So Morgan chose me. I did not choose her. I didn't even know it was her until I did research and I contacted a whole lot of people who freaked out. I worship someone else. He put it in. Again, I'm a skeptic.
Hey,
I
me.
know
That's
not
what she
the
said.
actual God that told me like go and do this with your past. I know that it's probably something psychosemantic, whatever. That energy though forced itself on me. That's how I could recognize that this is not me. So like when I get on Amino and people are like, how do I know this is the God that's talking? Well, you said that you watched this movie, dreamt about this deity.
Well, yeah, that's a little sus.
I really want to work with this person, and now I'm getting this sign. Is it from them? Probably not. There's you can see signs wherever you want to see. So going back to your question, can can you just work with one God? Yes, if that connection has been mutually established. Don't just assume because you want to really, really badly that connection is there. Just like a relationship, if you and I had never met at work and become friends, and I just got your number, decided to call you and say, hey, this is Christina Lynn, and I want you to get on this podcast with me. Why would you say yes? There's no relationship.
They know because I would be like, hell no. I'd be very
Who the hell
anxious
is
about that.
You know, that's what it is. So I mean, work with the deity that you're working with. Also recognize that they have the option of saying no. If that task is not within the wheelhouse of that god, probably will not fruit into anything.
Yeah. I like having a team in my corner.
Yeah, that's better anyway. I mean,
I'm very lucky.
I just
like
worship one.
My god is not jealous.
Right. Well, and I kind of look at it. The team that I have, the deities that I respect and work with, and I involve in the stuff that I'm doing, are essentially all aspects of each other, anyways. Thoth is an aspect of Hermes. They're basically the same god, just they just look different. Same with if you line up Thoth, Baphomet, and Hermes. They're essentially the same aspect of one god or of one idea.
Well, and those pantheons play really well together too.
Right. And then when you drop it into Asatru and Celtic nature worship, it gets even crazier because then you can throw Kyrnanos in there and you've got the Horn God playing with Baphomet, playing with if you go on Discord and you look at my icon, my avatar is an image of the Horned God in the pose of Baphomet, doing the as above, so below hand gesture.
I saw
I'm looking at your thing
the
right now.
imagery of the Horned God.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, different.
I love the imagery as the Horn God because I just love
Right.
horns.
And so, and I
I've
took
never
that. That's actually from one of my favorite bands. It's part of their artwork. And I'm like, that is the perfect representation of what I believe. So I use it as my avatar for pretty much everything. It's my Facebook avatar as well.
it's important that going forward, I know probably nobody's watching because I think we've gone over a little bit in time.
Oh yeah, 6:34.
I really want us to talk about gods in an upcoming episode. By the way, pantheons and how they work, and finding a patron and worshiping and all that kind of stuff. I think that's a topic that
I know nothing about that.
Maybe we should just like do an expanded episode if we had time. I don't know because we could get into it. I think the three of us. But it is important to make sure that your workspace and your prayer space are two different things. It's more respectful not only of whoever your shrine is to, but also your tools. Like my shrine hardly ever gets messed with. It's dirty up there. I will admit it's in a china cabinet and it's closed, but I know it's still probably dusty.
Oh yeah, mine does too.
Unfortunately, the shrine and the upkeep of the shrine is not on the forefront of my mind. Like the last year, um, but I wouldn't want to put my altar tools in there. Like I don't want my stones to be up there. I don't want my cards to be up there or my candles.
Yeah.
I don't want lights to heat up the candles. I don't want candles to touch the glass. Whatever.
My tools stay out pretty regularly. You know, I don't have a permanent altar anywhere. But my anathema is always within reach. I have my antler staff is in its corner up against the wall where I can always see it if I need it. It's there. My wand is my wand. Oh, my wand is a temporary drumstick for one of my ritual drums right now.
Nice.
Yeah, I turned my wand into a drum mallet. My goblet is, where's my goblet? My goblet I think is in my SCA box actually because it's also my drinking chalice. It's my tankard. So
Yeah.
I use my tools. They get used through not just for altar work but for everything else.
And it works for your path and your craft. Like the craft that the path and the craft that I'm walking, like my athame, I don't even have a wand because I have an athame. What I could be using a wand for is the same thing I use my athame for.
Yeah.
I have my white handle knife as well. It's a shitty piece of Pakistani steel with mermaids all over it that was gifted to me. I'll use that to dig out candle wax. I'll use that to chop up herbs. That's what that's for.
Maybe what we should also do on a future show is bust out all of our tools, and I'd have no problems with bringing out my tools and showing you. I mean, my anathema doubles. It's not just my ritual knife, but it also doubles as a sickle because it's a curved Middle Eastern jambia that a very dear friend of mine gave me before he passed away. So,
is that Master Rashid?
Yes. Yeah, it was his. It was one of his jambias. It's a beautiful Damascus jambia.
I kind of want to see it because I think I know what a jambia looks like, and I have. If it's the same thing, I had a little nice.
This one's about that
we
long.
Definitely then want to do it.
And then somebody borrowed those keys off that pen. I used it to cut the herbs in my garden.
Yeah.
My little planter box.
But it's this one's curved enough that I don't have a problems with it also representing a sickle when I need to represent a sickle.
Right. Again, everybody who's watching or will be watching, tools depend on your path and your craft.
Yeah.
Just because we're mentioning it doesn't mean that you have to have it. It really does depend on your.
Oh yeah.
Like I said, really an athame in some traditions is the same as a wand.
Yeah.
In fact, they're considered the same thing in some sacred texts.
Yep.
Actually,
my wand's made out of a myrtle branch just because I had one. Just cut the tree, and I was like, yeah. And I wanted a wood burn. So.
Well, some traditions say that you can only make a wand out of a year-old sapling. Like, wands get really into it, man.
Like, myrtle's like 6 years old, 3 years old, 6 years old. I don't know. It's Myrtle's old. Nice Myrtle though.
Yeah, my
like I read something that said that it has to be raw. It can't be like whittled. It can't be polished. Um, like there's some one of the reasons to stay away from
Rip the bark right off. I went like.
yeah, there's some
I didn't
wacky
wanna
rules.
do all
Mine
that.
mine is very plain. It was actually gifted to me by somebody that I respect greatly. It was also in the SCA. Um, she is my sister. She's also somebody who follows a path very close to mine, and we've operated in circles together. Um, but yeah, it's just a very plain one. It's just nothing super fancy, but it works for me.
My mom had a wooden dowel. She basically sanded to a point at one end, and then her friend went to Britain and brought her back a Stonehenge pencil, a little like pewter Stonehenge on the top. So she took that off the pencil once it was used and put it on the end of her one. That was her one for the longest time.
Okay,
You know, to each their own paths and their own crafts. Well, guys, I think we covered it pretty good this week. I did. Before we go off, is there any announcements? I'm super excited about our announcements. To be honest.
I have
anything
one
anything else going on?
I got this. Like you said, look out for the R2D2 one. And I did. I found it. That's the most important announcement.
Looks like it's missing some decals, or does it have decals that you put on it, or?
Yeah, it's a customizable one.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
I know, right? I'm so excited. It's gonna be green, purple. It's gonna be Barney. No.
So what you need to do is that you need to come out with your own special brand of rainbow astromech droid.
Okay, I need to find someone who has a cricket. Like maybe some stickers.
Dude, I'm hella thinking that mystery cricket.
Dude, I want a cricket. That's like my next thing.
Before you buy a cricket, read up on all the shenanigans that they're trying to pull, because they're trying to do some shady shit with their users. And I'm not happy about it. They're trying to charge everybody now.
Wait a minute. You have to buy stuff, buy the machine, and then they're going to charge you?
From what I understand, they tried it. I think they backed off, but just double check before you get a cricket. Double check, because
plus bullshit right here, okay?
It hit the open source community pretty hard. They're like, "What the fuck? We're gonna pirate the fuck out of your service then."
Yeah.
One login, 15 people.
Well, I think somebody was actually going to try and build a free service that would work with the Cricket hardware, but I don't know. That's kind of beyond my scope.
I hope that's on Kickstarter.
Heck yeah, I'd back that.
I don't know. I'll have to see if I can find the article on it. But yeah, I know they were trying to pull some shady shit.
I'll keep that in mind. Yeah, thanks for telling me. I didn't even hear that, but all right. What's the other announcement?
So we have our next guest. I'm saying this in front of everybody so that people can get ready. We have our next guest. Our next guest is on the 21st, which will be our first broadcast through YouTube Live.
Who is it?
His name is Matt.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I don't have a lot of other information as of yet, but he is going to be here on the 21st with us.
He's somebody that you could talk to about Hellenistic faiths, because that's kind of his bag.
Yep. He's in a lot of different paths and crafts.
Yeah.
You want to talk about multiple paths at the same time. That is your man.
I know he likes Hecate a lot.
Did he pick a particular topic that he'd like to talk about, or did he leave it open?
It's in the email if you want to take a look.
I didn't get it.
You did.
I was having trouble opening the last one, so that's why I never was able to open it.
Yeah, you gotta open it on your computer. That's the trick that I found.
I gotta actually use my laptop.
I might have uploaded it to the drive. So yeah, the 21st is our next guest appearance. We're launching on the 15th. It will be immediately after our 14th, the
Kink?
the 14th episode. We'll launch
Fourth
on the
kink.
15th, which will have all of our episodes. I think this is actually episode like 8 or 9. I'm not sure.
I'm terrible at counting, keeping track. Yeah. So, next episode on the 14th.
Yes, and I'm letting people know now. The next episode on for the 14th, we're doing it on familiars. So if you want to join the discussion about familiars, I'd love to hear it.
Heck yeah.
I'd love to bust your bubble. Fortunately, we're gonna bust some bubbles.
It's a touchy subject, just like everything, but it's gonna be a fun one.
That's what's coming up. If you guys actually want to join us in during our discussions, of course, drop a line in the chat. There's a chat for the live YouTube, isn't there, Cliff?
Yes.
I think there is, yeah.
Yes.
And we're I say we're I am still working on our Discord channel. So for those who want to use Discord instead, chat with us. Let us know. And if there's any other topics that you want us to address because we haven't yet, let us know. We're interested. We're running out of things to talk about. I could just start playing D&D with you guys.
Oh my gosh, I have to finish filling out my background character. Thanks for reminding me.
You're welcome. We don't have a date yet. We're trying for the weekend.
I'll work with me.
Somebody needs to check Discord more often.
Who could that be?
I don't know. They missed the production notes today too.
That person just must be really just messy and everything. A total mess.